y'all, Violet here, second generation homeschooling mom of 3. I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a toddler. Today I wanted to share an update on how our first quarter went, so let's get into it. So we have finished our first 8 weeks of school, and overall they've gone really well. I think I'm going to organize this video by subject instead of by kid. I just think that'll be a little bit easier for these kind of quick update type videos. So I wanted to get started with math. My son finished Singapore 2B, and he's working through Beast Academy 3A. I was a little bit nervous about this transition because Beast Academy has a reputation of being really difficult, and I know that specifically the first chapter in this, the geometry chapter, some people said was a lot harder than the rest of the book, but so far my son has done really, really well with it. So Beast Academy has this graphic novel guidebook, and my son has really enjoyed reading this. My daughter read it a little bit too, but she's just not super into this sort of puzzle approach that Beast Academy has. She's much prefers the straightforward approach of Singapore. So she didn't read very much of this. She just didn't particularly enjoy it. But my son has really enjoyed it so far, and he's done really, really well with the geometry unit. He hasn't found anything particularly challenging yet, but he has been interested in a lot of the problems and kinds of things that they've been having him do, both in the guidebook and then also in the practice book. So that's been going really well so far, and I've found it pretty straightforward to teach as well. But so far he's doing really well with this, and he is enjoying it more than he was enjoying Singapore. So far I've been really pleased with that. My daughter, as I said, prefers a little bit more straightforward approach to math, so she's been doing really well with Singapore. We've been using it since the beginning with her. She's a year ahead in Singapore, so she's in 4th grade and she's doing 5A. She's doing really well with that. She's a decent amount of the way into it so far. Just in our first 8 weeks of school. There have been a few lessons that we've broken into more than one day, especially the word problem lessons. It's just a lot of word problems to get through all at once, so we usually slow down a little bit for those lessons, and that's been going really well as well. Next, let's move into writing. My son is doing writing with ease, and my daughter started writing strands. And I was unsure how both of these subjects were going to go for my kids. My son has struggled with fine motor in the past. He did OT for a while, for a bunch of stuff, not just fine motor. But so far, he's been doing really well with writing with ease. The length of sentences that they have kids start with are 6 to 8 word sentences, and he is completely capable of doing that. So it's definitely not his favorite subject. It's not something he's excited to do, but he does it with very few complaints. And he actually really likes the editing piece where we check for capital letters, that we're starting our sentences with capital letters and ending with punctuation marks. He finds that part fun. So that's nice. I'm glad there's something with writing that he's excited to do. And then writing strands has been going really well for my daughter. She really likes the more creative elements that it incorporates. It does focus on principles of good writing, like including details in paragraphs, organizing your thoughts, things like that. But it's a much more kind of loose and creative approach than many other writing programs take. And for her, that is a good fit. But we're also pairing it with more structured writing approaches through the Writing Revolution, which we use to do writing in literature, and then also Well-Trained Minds approach to writing, which we are using in history right now because it's part of the history curriculum. So I've been really pleased with how this has been going so far, but I definitely think that you do, for most kids, probably need to have something more structured to go along with it. Even natural writers benefit from some sort of structure, so pairing this with the more structured elements of Writing Revolution and Well-Trained Mind has been working really well for us so far. I'll do a more thorough review of writing strands once we've done it for a while. For grammar, both of my kids are doing first language lessons. My son started the 1st level, and then my daughter is doing the 4th level. And my daughter does grammar bugs from Rooted in Language as a supplement to this. We use them instead of the diagramming. We look at the diagramming too, but we use the grammar bugs to make it a little bit more fun. I have noticed that in this level, first language lesson starts introducing things like indirect objects, which grammar bugs doesn't touch at all. So I searched in the Facebook group, and I had to kind of figure out which pieces to use to kind of approximate talking about those grammatical aspects, because they don't provide any direction in grammar bugs. That just isn't something they cover in grammar bugs, which was a little bit disappointing to realize because it is a pretty expensive supplement. And then first language lessons, level 1 has been going well with my son as well. We've been going through, so we've done 8 weeks of school, and we've done the first 32 lessons, and that's because a lot of the first 30 lessons are what is a noun, what is a proper noun, and what is a common noun, and you go over it over and over and over again. And it does pick up a little bit after that, but those first lessons are very repetitive and neither one of my kids needed that much repetition. So we skip and condense a lot of those initial lessons just because for my kids, it is too much. It does pick up after that though. And so we'll condense and skip fewer lessons the farther we get into first language lessons. But I do really like first language lessons. I think it's a solid approach. I know some people dislike how much memorization it has. And while I totally understand that, I do think there is some value in having those definitions memorized in the back of your mind. They're not expecting kids to recognize what a noun is at this age. They're expecting them to memorize what the definition of a noun is, so that later when they learn to find a noun in a sentence, they already know the definition of a noun and they can kind of put those two pieces together then. They're not expecting them to do it at this age, if that makes sense. So I really like this program and I like how it builds to level 4, which by level 4 you are expected to find a noun in a sentence. So yeah, those have been going really well for my kids as well. Spelling, both of my kids are doing all about spelling. My son is trucking through level 2. He is getting actually pretty close to the end. We were using the spelling tiles for him for a bit, but he got frustrated with how slowly he was spelling with them. And he asked if he could just spell the words out loud. And I said, sure, let's try it. And he's been doing really, really well with that. I actually think that being able to see the word in your mind and then spell it out loud is more difficult than spelling it with the tiles or even writing it on a piece of paper. So my son is a really good speller. All of that seems to be fairly intuitive for him. My daughter's a good speller as well, but she's not as good at spelling words out loud. So she always writes all of her spelling words. But yeah, for my son, spelling them out loud has been going really well. And as long as that continues to work well for him, I don't anticipate changing that, at least for this year. Maybe next year we'll move more into writing the spelling words because I do think that's helpful as the spelling words get more complicated. And also All About Spelling includes dictation phrases, which right now we're not really doing for a variety of reasons, but I do want to incorporate them in the future, hopefully by next year. So we will eventually move to writing spelling words, but for now he's doing them orally and that's working really well. My daughter is enjoying level 7 a lot better than level 6. Level 6 is kind of a confusing hodgepodge of random stuff that doesn't really follow rules very well, at least rules the way All About Spelling sets up rules. And it wasn't a great level for either of us. Neither of us particularly liked it. Level 7 starts to get into Greek roots and Latin roots. And so the lessons that we just finished were doing all these trees. And you can print this template out from their website. And so they cram a bunch of these trees into each lesson. And so we slowed this down. There have been times when we've done one lesson in a day or 2 days, and we definitely spent a lot more time playing with these trees than we've spent on previous lessons. So we spent a while doing some of these things, and she thought these were really, really fun. So yeah, that's been going really well as well. For literature, both of my kids do Fish Tank ELA. My daughter just finished this Greek myths unit, and this was really fun. For this unit, she read to herself a bunch of different versions of the same myth. So she read 4 different versions of Arachne, 4 different versions of Pandora, 4 different versions of Echo and Narcissus. And then we compared all the different versions. So 2 of the versions were myth retellings. One of the versions was these Greek myth plays. So they were plays with parts. So you're just reading the script for them. And then the last version were these reverso poems. And Marilyn Singer has several reverso poem books. We have her fairy tale one, Follow, Follow. And I think she has another fairy tale one as well. But this Echo, Echo book is all Greek myth poems. And so each side of the poem, it's the same lines, but they're reversed top to bottom. And so the emphasis of the poem changes. And sometimes the person speaking in the poem changes as well. It just kind of depends on which poem. So this was a really, really fun unit to compare all of these different retellings of the myths and see how changing different things, even something just like changing the way it's presented, it changes the emphasis and kind of feel of the myth. So that was really fun. And my son is almost done with his Folktales Around the World unit in Fish Tank, and that's been really fun as well. We did the 7 Continents unit right before this, which I think the 7 Continents unit is technically an alternate unit 4, but I felt like it made more sense to put before the Folktales Around the World because now we can talk about which continents these countries are in. And we're using our globe when we do this. And my kids already have done a lot of geography, so they know which continents a lot of these countries are in already and can find them on the globe. But I still liked doing it that way just to make sure that we had the background solid. So yeah, that's been going well as well. Folktales are always fun. For science, both of my kids are doing Building Foundations of Scientific Understanding. My son's in volume 1 and my daughter's in volume 2. My son's been enjoying the lessons that we've been doing here. I really think the first few lessons in this book I think are really fun to teach, but some kids might find them a bit basic, but my son's enjoyed them so far. My daughter's enjoying volume 2. That's been going well. I've also been adding in some units from Teach Engineering to kind of bring in more practical applications of science with kind of an engineering focus. I have a whole video about things I'm considering adding to BFSU that I'll link down below if you're interested, but that's been going well so far. For history, my daughter is doing Story of the World Volume 4 and then also the second half of History Quest US, and combining those two has been going really well. I also have a in-depth look at both of these that I'll link down below if you're interested that I filmed recently. And then my son for history has been doing history podcasts. And we started out listening to Time Traveling Tanya because that was of all the options that I showed him, that was the one that he was most interested in. It's from Go Kids Go, and he likes a lot of the other Go Kids Go podcasts. So Time Traveling Tanya is a lot of biographies of famous people. You travel back in time and meet them. And so he liked it for maybe 2 weeks, and then he started to get bored of the biography format. And he actually asked if we could switch to another podcast that we'd trialed, but he'd initially rejected. And that is Mysteries About True Histories. So the MATH is the acronym. And that's a history podcast that also includes some math, science, problem solving type stuff. And it's a little bit more action adventure-y. So he'd initially not liked the sound of it. But after listening to Time Traveling Tanya for a few weeks, he decided he wanted to try a couple of episodes of math, and he did not like the first episode at all. But the second episode he did enjoy, and so he listened to a few more of them, and he keeps listening to them, but it's definitely more, some of them he likes, some of them he really doesn't like. So it's kind of interesting to me that that's the one that he gravitates to and wants to keep listening to. But I'm fine with whatever. I mostly just want a podcast that will start to introduce some historical people, places, things like that to him before we jump into ancient history next year. And he does a little bit of narration when he's done listening, telling me about what he learned about in the podcast so that I know he's paying attention. But yeah, I didn't care a ton which podcast he chose. I just wanted one that would be engaging for him and that he would listen to. Some of the other ones that we trialed were just too long, like Past and the Curious, I think is for a little bit older kids. The episodes some of them are like 30 minutes long, which is great if your kid is interested in it, but he wasn't. And then there's the Who Was podcast. There's a few others that forever ago, there's a few others that we kind of trialed over the summer and he just wasn't into. But I'm glad that we found one that he listens to regularly now. He listens to it twice a week, and it's been going well. For art, we use Artistic Pursuits. My son is doing volume 1. My daughter's doing volume 7. They both really like art. Last year, I had them doing art on different days so that I could help them, and I really didn't need to do that. They're both pretty independent with their art projects, especially the way that these Artistic Pursuits volumes are set up. So this year they do art on the same day, and so they'll read their lesson or watch their video, and then they'll sit across the table from each other and do their art projects. And I just think it's really sweet that they work together. They're working on different things. They're working on different skills and different projects, but they're kind of working together at the same time. And so that's been fun. So that's been going really well too. And my son has also been asking to do extra art on days that I don't have art scheduled because I just have it scheduled once a week. He does a lot of art independently already. One of the ways that he processes information is drawing it visually. That really is helpful to him. And so with this extra art, a lot of it is just he's using the techniques he's learned in here, but he's illustrating and drawing stuff that he's reading about or that he's interested in just kind of outside of school. And so I don't really need to prepare a lesson for him. I just need to say, yeah, sure, you can do art, and help him find the watercolor paper if he can't find it, for example. So that's been really fun. For foreign languages, my son has been doing French, and my daughter has been going to a Mandarin Chinese school for a few years. And this is one of the changes that we made this year, is she decided that she did not want to go to the in-person Mandarin Chinese school anymore. So I researched a bunch of stuff online, and I talked to a couple of my friends who they teach English in China, and just kind of tried to figure out what the best option would be. And I ended up finding a program based in China that does in person and then also online tutoring. So they have an immersion program where you can go and spend time in China, but then they also offer online tutoring for adults and for kids, and it's pretty reasonably priced. So I signed my daughter up for the sample lesson. She really enjoyed it. And so she's been doing that once a week. It's called the Chinese Language Institute, I think. I'll put the link in the description box down below if you're interested. But yeah, it's one-on-one tutoring, so it's forcing her to speak a lot more than she had to speak in her kind of in-person group class setting, and it's been going really well so far. I've been really happy with the whole setup. It is because they're based in China. They're in the Beijing, they're not in Beijing, but they're in the Beijing time zone. So I only do it first thing in the morning or late at night. So we do it first thing in the morning, and that's been working really well so far. And then this week, my kids announced that they would like to add Spanish back in, which I'm happy to do, but we use Flip-Flop as our main Spanish curriculum, and I put it to the side last year when my kids said that they didn't want to do Spanish anymore, and I actually lent a bunch of my Flip-Flop stuff to one of my friends, so I have to get it back from her. But in the meantime, I pulled out this Play and Learn Spanish. This is a Spanish phrase book, and so this is more... My kids are welcome to look at this or listen to the CD, but this is more for me to kind of remind myself of what all these Spanish phrases are and incorporate them into daily life. And then we also watch Salsa from PBS, which is these kind of weird puppets, but my kids really like it. And it's a very good immersive introduction to a lot of different vocabulary. So yeah, this phrase book has been really helpful for us. So I'm excited to add Spanish back in, and we'll start using Flip-Flop Spanish again. My son said that he would like to be multilingual. And so he wants to do Spanish twice a week and French twice a week. And my daughter will keep doing her Chinese, but she also would like to join the Spanish lessons when my son does them. So I'm excited that they want to do Spanish again. So for group subjects, we'll start with music. And this year we're doing rock and roll, and my husband's actually doing this with the kids. So that's been fun for them to do together. My kids were not huge fans of the first few sections of this, the early rock and roll type stuff. My daughter said that it had way too many love songs. But now that they're into hard rock, like Led Zeppelin, and then they also just listen to Jimi Hendrix and Yes. I don't think my kids like Yes. Prog rock is kind of an acquired taste, I think. I don't particularly care for it. But my kids really liked Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin. They're finally not entirely love songs and kind of more of that hard rock sound. But yeah, this has been really, really fun for my kids to do with my husband, and they've been enjoying it so far. And then we also do folk song study. We use Wildwood's folk song rotation. That's been going well. Some of our read-alouds for kind of our morning basket time. I was originally planning to do these as more of a loop where I would read one book all the way through, and then when I was done with it, I would start the next book. But the sections in both of these books are so short that I decided to just do them together because I have enough time during snack time to read a little bit from this, one section from this and one section from this, and also my son's fish tank book and anything else that I need to read during snack time. So my kids have really been enjoying this Adventures of Penrose the Mathematical Cat. It's just a little exploration of different mathematical concepts, and most of the sections are 1 to 2 pages. Occasionally there'll be one longer, but there are a lot of illustrations as well. And every section ends with a little challenge to explore the math concept yourself. So this has been really fun. And then Tiny Worlds of the Appalachian Mountains. This is this artist's journey through the whole Appalachian Trail, essentially. So we've made it all the way to Shenandoah National Park. We do skip these more kind of journal-like entries that are about her personal life. But my kids have been enjoying all of the nature entries and the watercolors of the different little creatures and plants that she's found along the way. So this has been really fun so far too. And yeah, that's everything that I wanted to share an update about today. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. I'd also love to hear how your first few weeks have gone. I'm also working on a Q&A video right now, so if you have any questions for me about homeschool or life or anything like that for that video, you can also comment those down below, or I have a post in the communities tab that you can comment them on if you'd prefer to do that. As always, I will link everything in the description box down below. I am an Amazon and Bookshop affiliate, so if you click on one of those links and make a purchase, I do receive a small commission. Thank you for watching.